What is it, sir?
The ion cannon's been engaged, sir.
Command & Conquer 3 Tiberium Wars. Is it worth playing in 2025? Oh boy, so this game came out in 2007. Some might argue that 2007 was the best year in gaming history. To say that there was some competition would be an understatement, but for a lot of people, this is the definitive best way to experience Command & Conquer, developed by Danger Close, a part of EA Los Angeles. So how does it hold up in 2025?
Your faith has been tested.
I'm about to upset some people. Sit down for this one. I didn't like it. Wait, before you get your pitchforks, hear me out. I think my audience is fairly smart. I am going to lay out my biases, and then I am going to talk about the game. I will use other games in the series as a comparison as to why I think the way I do, and then, knowing all the facts, you can roast me in the comments. Deal? Alright. Bias number one, this is the first CNC game I am reviewing where I didn't play it on launch. As such, I don't have any nostalgia for this game. Bias number two is that I played the retail version of the game, which has a severe nerf that makes the campaigns difficult in an unfun way. You can mod the game to revert the nerf. For the older Command & Conquer games, I did mod those games and linked instructions on how to do that because you need to do that to use modern resolutions and to fix a bunch of compatibility issues. This is not the same for Tiberium Wars. In this instance, you would be modding the game purely for game balance changes. But we'll talk more about it when it comes up. So what is Tiberium Wars? Well, Kane is thought to be dead after the events of the second Tiberium War, launches a surprise attack on GDI forces, destroying their satellite base of operations to Philadelphia in the opening scenes. See my Command & Conquer Tiberian Sun review for additional context, but for those that know Command & Conquer, the Philadelphia being shot down is a massive event. Kane being dead, not a big deal. He's considered dead every Tuesday. This is kind of the standard affair for every Command & Conquer game, but there is a midpoint twist that we need to talk about because it affects the gameplay as well. About halfway through the game, the Earth is invaded by an alien faction called the Skrin, and this throws the whole GDI Nod conflict into disarray as they turn to repel the new threat while trying to kill each other. So which side do you pick? Well, not the Skrin, that's for damn sure. This is the most uninspired, in quotes, I just watched Independence Day with my kids last night faction that I have ever seen in my life, and if you want to play that, go play X-Morph Defense instead because that's actually fun to play. And if you're detecting a hint of bitterness towards the alien invasion trope, then yeah, I hate it. I just find it to be incredibly un-Command & Conquer in the same way as eating a meat pie with a knife and fork is un-Australian. And to understand where I'm coming from, we have to look at Tiberian Sun and the nature of Tiberium itself. So in Command & Conquer 3 Tiberium Wars, Tiberium exists and you harvest it. If your infantry stand on it, they die slowly because it's toxic. Cool. So in 1999, we had Tiberium, we had cyborgs that used Tiberium to heal, we had Tiberium that could catch fire and explode. We had a whole story arc revolving around the mutations caused by Tiberium, and we had Tiberium-based life forms called vein holes that would spread and cover the map if you didn't take care of them. We had Nod units that were dedicated to harvesting the veins to make toxic missiles. So these weren't just story elements that were talked about, these were gameplay elements that you interacted with. This entire diegetic ecosystem is just gone. Didn't happen. Fake news. Instead, what we have is beetles, because StarCraft already took cockroaches. Don't worry though, the mutants are still there. If you capture certain buildings, you can build one type of mutant unit. But yeah, it's a footnote. So yeah, Dune was Westwood's first RTS, and there were a lot of parallels that I enjoyed with Command & Conquer. For example, GDI is Atreides, not as Harkonnen, mutants are Fremen, and the Tiberium is Spice. This parallel was perfect, I love where this was going, I really liked the humanity of Command & Conquer. It was a great mirror for how our human nature is self-destructive and petty with a campy sci-fi sheen.
At least your mother tipped well.
I love the drama, tension, and tribalism that you could create with Nod and GDI back and forth. And once you add in the Skrin, it's just really hard to hate bugs in the same way that you can hate a person. It doesn't have the same appeal as Starship Troopers that did that excellently.
I'm from Buenos Aires, and I say kill them all!
Now, don't get me wrong, I am totally aware that there is a crashed alien ship in Tiberian Sun, and you have the alien database called the Tacitus, cool. But it's one of those moments when it was just way better when they were an ominous unknown. Once you reveal that they are just beetles, it's like when the Wizard of Oz is exposed as a fraud. All the tension and foreboding evaporates. And like I hinted at before with Starship Troopers, I think there's a way you could have done it, but I think Tiberium Wars does it in the most predictable and deflating way, and it comes across as by the numbers. That said, the crowning achievement of Tiberium Wars, I believe, is the live action cutscenes, with most action in the live action really coming to the forefront in Act 5 of most of the campaigns. And this is where the real tension is. By the way, after beating the campaigns, the Scrin campaign opens, and it's more of an extra, being less than half the length and more of a bonus. Again, the introduction of the Scrin really dampens the entire affair because the acts can pretty much be defined as first you jockey for the upper hand, you win the upper hand, everything is reset by the Scrin invasion, and it simply becomes about that until both sides get over the shock of the invasion. And then everyone picks up the strings from the first half of the game. Everything about the live action cutscenes improves when they are not talking about the Scrin directly, but rather when they talk about how they can use Scrin technology for their own plans. And that kind of begs the question, wouldn't it be better if the Scrin technology was there and not the Scrin themselves? Anyways, Michael Ironside makes an appearance here as a GDI general, while Billy D. Williams does play an excellent role as a slimy politician. And finally, we have a GDI storyline with some teeth where they don't pretend like GDI are some kind of perfect institution. Joseph Kukan as Kane always delivers, alongside Trisha Helfer playing as Killian, his second in command. Nod storylines always deliver because betrayal, faith, and consequence are in the DNA of their beliefs. And look, bad guys just have more fun. But I think this is as close as it gets to having equally interesting cutscenes in a Command & Conquer game. This all said, I still prefer Tiberian Sun's mode of story delivery, where the commanders are also acted parts of the story. But the storytelling in Tiberium Wars is definitely the best part of the game, and even if you aren't going to play the game, I recommend giving the cutscenes a watch so you can lament over the sci-fi series that should have been, but unfortunately never will be. Okay, but how's the gameplay? None of the story stuff matters if the gameplay is god tier. I will give Tiberium Wars its flowers. It's better than Command & Conquer 4, and it is also the best 3D Command & Conquer game ever made. But I didn't like it. Now, I think the units are mostly cool, except for the Scrin. Nod follows a similar line as Tiberian Sun, where they excel at hit and run, unit specialization, and tech, thanks to stolen alien technology. I really like the Avatar. I really like how the Avatar can consume your other units and adopt their weapon as an additional mount. GDI takes the middle road, focusing on firepower. The Mammoth tank is back in its original form, and GDI artillery is devastating. The Scrin have some teleportation tricks, they don't have to store Tiberium in silos like the human factions, and generally rely on air power, with their main artillery being a flying unit. Fundamentally, there is nothing wrong here, except there's a lot wrong from a continuity perspective. Like the Mammoth Mark II in Tiberian Sun was this massive walker unit. Now it's suddenly a tank again? GDI pretty much specialized in mech and hover tech, and suddenly they don't anymore. Now Nod has a mech, but they totally forgot that their flame tanks and APCs are capable of subterranean travel. And how is it that Nod forgot how to use artillery? A staple Nod strength, just gone. Anyways, not a deal breaker. I feel like the fantasy and units are cool, but it definitely doesn't make sense to me. It feels like after Nod and GTI got alien tech, they somehow regressed in capability. Now, unfortunately, from here, it's all downhill. Let's start with unit movement. You no longer build individual infantry units, you build squads. This makes management easier, but my issue with it is that infantry take a lot more space and are incapable of overlapping. Now, bear with me here, I'm getting to a point. Your vehicles have turning circles, and as such, changes in direction means that a vehicle has to perform a turning maneuver, and depending on the vehicle, this is going to expand the space it needs to operate. Two problems. If you are trying to stage anything near a Tiberium Tiberium field, expect your vehicles to push your infantry into the Tiberium and kill them. The other is that if you have a death ball and you are trying to reorganize the units in the ball, they are going to freak out and start acting like bumper cars. I mean, look at this avatar trying to consume this attack bike. I constantly had issues where I was just losing units because they were performing turns instead of firing. The end result is after a while, I just got sick of trying to do anything complicated. I'd just wait until I had an overwhelming force and then kill everything in one go because it's just not responsive or fun to engage in extensive micro. I wasn't playing the command part as much as the conquer part. Now, I can't remember if this is some sort of holdover from generals that I just forgot about, but it wasn't in the command and conquer games before this one, and it definitely wasn't a problem in Red Alert 3. But wait, there's more, and this has a stacking effect onto what I just said. Because let's say that you are some sort of micro god and you understand all the nuances of Tiberium Wars. Well, guess what? Tiberium Wars retail patch has a nerf in it that decreases the amount of Tiberium you get per load from your harvester. Just briefly, you have to collect Tiberium with harvesters, take them to a refinery, and they turn that into cash so that you can buy units. This was supposed to affect multiplayer only, but it affects the campaign as well. The result is that there are these crazy difficulty spikes in particular missions because you just run out of Tiberium so fast. But that's okay. You can just move out, push the enemy harvesters out of their Tiberium field, and then they will be cut off and you'll have the cash flow you need. Wrong. I have never been more aware in my entire life that the enemy base is just spawning enemies in waves like a MOBA. It doesn't even attempt to fake interacting with the economy, so harvester harassment is a waste of time. And again, here is another reason to not engage in any strategy that is not wipe the enemy base off the map in a single push. I mean, I remember this one GDI mission where you have to defend this area by unpowering and powering different turrets until you can set up your base, which was a genuinely fun use of the mechanic. But once you get your base up and running, you are told that you need to urgently escort a convoy that is under attack and then eliminate the nod bases, which is bullshit. Because what happens is that there is one base that spams waves of infantry, one that spams aircraft, and the other spams vehicles, and it does not stop. What you really have to do is ignore the convoy that is actually perfectly fine by itself, destroy the base that is spamming vehicles because it has a Tiberium field, and then you'll need to systematically remove the other nod bases before you help the convoy because they will not stop sending waves. And what you don't know is that when you get to the convoy, it triggers nod reinforcements that are going to make it very difficult to both protect the convoy and protect your base from the constant flow of units, especially without the cash flow. The premise was fine. Some elements of that mission are really fun, but it makes me so mad that it tells you that you need to urgently rescue this convoy only to find that it is the least important objective and there is no urgency at all. And what happens is that if you don't look up how to do it, you are just wasting time learning how to cope with bad instructions and a bad patch. That was the worst one I played. But the AI through the entire game continually exhibits this behavior where you are constantly made aware that you are the only one interacting with the economy and none of the strategies around economy control ever matter. But wait, there's more. When you are playing a mission and the game wants to update you and give you another briefing, you are suddenly teleported to the surveillance camera view where it shows you the picture of the objective, but not the location on the map. So you can be in the middle of controlling your units and you are transitioned to a totally different view and told about some building you need to blow up with no context where that is in relation to where you just were. You only get this information after the transmission. This is one of these ideas that is cool on paper, but it just gets annoying after a while. I found myself sometimes skipping them out of spite because I didn't want to lose control in that moment, and the game doesn't give you the option to not have that happen until it's already happened. And something that's fairly common in missions is that the state of play will change. In one mission, you might think your enemy is GDI, and then halfway through a mission, a new enemy will appear and you have to take care of that. And that would be cool from a narrative point of view, but as the game went on, it just became so tedious because I wasn't thinking about the narrative. I was thinking, shit, I thought I'd finished the mission and now I've got to find more Tiberium because I'm about to lose my cash flow. I need to rebuild my death ball because I just used everything to remove the enemy spawns, and the game just resets the spawns with a different flavor of units. So what is supposed to be this really cool moment just felt groan-inducing because of the economy balance, the AI, and the unit control. And this is why I won't call this a game review, it's more a review of my experience, because while I know how the game goes, I didn't finish it. Day 1 I played for 4 hours. The next day I played for 3, the next day 1, and it just grinded down to, okay, let's just do 1 mission a day. Eventually I would just open up the game, look at the menu, and then just close it. I can't say I've ever experienced such a bludgeoning of unfun gameplay in any of the previous Command & Conquer games, or Red Alert 3 for that matter. I mean, I wasn't exactly hot on Red Alert 3, but I will gladly play more Red Alert 3 after this. Okay, so let's say that you like the story, you think the gameplay is fine. That leaves us with the visuals and sound. How the game looks, the sound and the effects are fine. They get a passing grade. The weapons firing, lasers and explosions are suitable for what is happening, and if you can get over the fact that your flame tanks can't tunnel underground, there is an aesthetic that you can enjoy. Visually speaking, Tiberium Wars inherits the worst of both worlds. It has none of the style or artistry of Tiberian Sun, largely owing to the bare bones of world presentation, but it was also born too early to really look great as a 3D game in our day and age. Overall, the game looks washed out as if there is a subtle white filter over everything, and this includes explosions and projectiles. It doesn't have the definition of Red Alert 3, and while it makes an attempt at it, it never captures the mood of Tiberian Sun. It's just okay in my estimation. I'm gonna say the same thing about the music here. The music sounds like they took Frank Klepacki's tracks and just washed over them with a filter that just takes off all the rough edges and mixed in the occasional orchestral piece to taste. The result is that I can't remember many tracks without going out of my way to intentionally listen to it. However, there are 2 that seem to stick out above the rest. Zenith and Apocalypse. Now, with this being said, there is enough there that if you gel with the story and you love the unit designs, which I think is the best selling point, they are cool. I think that's one of the best aspects. There is enough in the visuals and sound to hold this ship together and really have fun. The evidence clearly states that it's possible because many people love it, but I'm not one of them. So yeah, look, I think this is going to upset a lot of people. A lot of people played this game as a kid or a teenager with their dad, and it was their first experience. And understand that I am not attacking your experience or saying that you enjoyed something that was fake. In many ways, the circumstances that you play a game in are what makes the game special. Unfortunately, this is a review of my experiences in Command & Conquer 3 in 2025 and what I think people are going to find coming into the game fresh. I honestly think this is going to be an unpopular video, but I just can't lie about it to make you guys happy, especially knowing how someone that has no background with it would be signing up for a game that everyone knows is kind of broken, but has a community that has just accepted it. It's just assumed knowledge that you are supposed to know the workarounds for each mission, and if you don't know those workarounds, then the game feels like eating a bowl of brown rice. Gun to my head and it's a laser turret, I give Command & Conquer Tiberium Wars a 4 out of 10. If you mod it, it goes up to a 5.
Now, as for you, Commander, you're a disgrace to that uniform.